We'd planned exactly how to tell Jake. A quiet dinner, careful words, plenty of reassurance ready in case he needed it. We were braced for jealousy, for questions about whether he'd matter less, for the complicated feelings that can come with a new sibling entering a family that had already been rebuilt once from scratch. We weren't braced for what actually happened. My name is Ryan Mitchell, and this is the story of the night we told Jake he was going to be a big brother. And the reaction? That caught all three of us completely off guard.
Sarah had found out on a Tuesday. 2 pink lines on a test she'd taken almost as an afterthought, after weeks of unexplained exhaustion. She'd called me at work, her voice a strange mix of shock and joy. And I'd left early, meeting her at home where we sat together on the same porch steps that had witnessed a proposal and countless ordinary evenings since. "Are you happy?" she'd asked, still processing it herself. "Sarah, I'm overwhelmed in the best possible way," I told her, pulling her close. "We're having a baby." We decided to wait a week before telling Jake, partly to let the news settle for ourselves first, partly because Sarah wanted to be past the earliest, most fragile weeks before we shared it with him. We spent that week quietly preparing, rehearsing gentle explanations, ready to reassure him that nothing about our family's love for him would change. We chose a Sunday dinner, the same tradition that had become sacred to our family over the years. Emily wasn't joining us that particular week. We'd decided Jake should hear this news first, privately, before it became something the wider family discussed. "Jake," Sarah said, once dinner was finished and the table cleared, "your dad and I have some big news we want to share with you." Jake looked between us, immediately alert to the shift in tone. "Is it bad news or good news?" "We think it's really good news," I said carefully. "Sarah's going to have a baby. You're going to be a big brother." The table went quiet. Jake's expression was unreadable for a long moment, processing, calculating, in the careful way he approached anything important. We'd prepared for so many possible responses: worry about attention being divided, questions about whether things would change, even simple excitement about a new sibling. What we hadn't prepared for was Jake's eyes filling with tears, his voice small and uncertain when he finally spoke. "So, this means I really am part of the family for real, not just until you had your own kid." Sarah's face crumpled instantly. "Jake, sweetheart, what do you mean? You've always been our real family." "I know that's what everyone says," Jake said, wiping quickly at his eyes, clearly embarrassed by his own emotion. "But sometimes I worried that maybe once you two had a baby that was actually both of yours, together, I'd become like the extra one, the one from before." I knelt down beside his chair, my chest tight with a feeling I hadn't fully anticipated. "Jake, how long have you been worried about that?" He shrugged, still not quite meeting my eyes. "A while, I guess. Since the wedding, maybe." I never said anything because it felt like a mean thing to think, especially since Sarah's always been so good to me. "That's not a mean thing to think at all," Sarah said, kneeling beside him too now, taking both his hands in hers. "That's a scared thing to think, and I understand exactly why you might have felt that way, even though it's not true. Not even a little bit. This baby isn't going to replace you or become more real family than you," I said. "You were the first person who ever made me a father. That doesn't get replaced by anyone who comes after you. It just gets added to." Sarah wiped her own eyes, taking a steadying breath before continuing. "Jake, I want you to hear this clearly. I didn't marry your dad hoping for a baby that would somehow feel more mine than you already are. I married your dad, and in doing that, I chose you too. Completely, permanently, no asterisks attached. This baby doesn't change that equation. It just makes it bigger. Really? Jake asked, his voice still small, but hopeful now, instead of afraid. Really, Sarah said firmly. In fact, I'm going to need you more than ever once this baby arrives. Big brothers are important. You're going to know things about this family that this baby won't learn for years. How Dad likes his coffee, what songs calm everyone down during long car rides, all the family stories from before they even existed. Jake managed a small, watery laugh. I guess that's true. I do know a lot of stuff. The rest of the evening shifted gradually from emotional to genuinely excited, Jake peppering us with an increasing number of questions. Would it be a boy or a girl? Could he help pick the name? Would the baby sleep in his old crib that my mother had apparently kept in her attic all these years? Can I be the one who teaches them stuff? Jake asked at one point. Like how to ride a bike and about volcanoes and stuff like that. I think you'd be a fantastic teacher, I told him. You've had a lot of practice being patient with grown-ups who don't always understand things right away. Jake grinned at that, clearly pleased with the observation, some of the earlier tension fully melting away into simple, uncomplicated excitement about the sibling ahead of him. After Jake went to bed, Sarah and I sat together in the quiet kitchen, still processing the evening's unexpected emotional turn. I had no idea he was carrying that, Sarah said. All this time, wondering if he was somehow less permanent than a future baby would be. I don't think we could have known, I said. Kids carry things quietly sometimes, especially the ones who've already learned that families can change unexpectedly. I'm glad we found out now, Sarah said. Before the baby even gets here. Now we get to spend these next months making sure he never has to wonder about that again. Looking back on that dinner, I think about how easy it would have been to miss what Jake was really feeling underneath his careful, quiet processing. We'd prepared for jealousy and gotten something far more vulnerable instead. A child's quiet fear about his own place in a family he'd already worked so hard to believe in. If you've ever worried that new love in your family might make old love feel smaller, if you've ever needed someone to tell you, clearly and completely, that you belong without any conditions attached, I want you to know, real family doesn't divide when it grows. It just makes more room. If this story moved you, let me know in the comments. And if you have a story of your own, share it below. It might just become our next episode. This is Silent Love. And this was a story about a family that keeps choosing everyone in it again and again.